Hi, this is Prof. Redder with part 3 of NetBeans and GitHub. And in this video, we're going to talk about how we can use a product called Git and a website called GitHub to help us manage and share our code and actually to maintain various versions of our code with practically no effort on our part for much of it. So, actually I shouldn't say no effort, but very little effort. And once you get used to using it, it'll be really simple for you to manage. So what I want to do here to start with is I want to create a new project. And we're going to create this, and I'm just going to delete it right away because what I want to do is just to show you how to go about various setup things that it takes to make Git and GitHub work. Alright, so the first thing I want to do is come here, click New Project. I'm going to make a Java application, and I'm going to call it Java Sample. And I'm going to put it in my Documents folder and click on Finish. And so you can see that I've got this Java Sample here. I've got this folder that's called Java Sample in this. Let me grab it over here in my Documents folder. Java Sample is right there, and there's what we got. It used to not exist before I did that, and now it does. And what I've got here is a folder called NetBeans Project, NB Project, a folder of source code. Notice that we have one piece of source code right here, this sample Java folder or app, and it looks like this. It's down in the Java Sample folder, and it looks like this. I mean, it's just a file that has some Java code in it, and we can go look at that right here, and you'll see that it's got a main method there that'll get called, and that's about all there is. The issue here is that we have really no good way of managing the history and modifications of this file. So as we develop our code, we don't really have any record of how it was modified or who modified it or anything like that, or why it was modified. So it turns out that there's this whole concept called versioning, and versioning is used to manage all of that and more. So what I want to do is to show you how to establish versioning for an application and or a project actually. And what I'm going to do is right click on the name of the project, and I'm going to come down here where it says versioning, and I'm going to click on initialize Git repository. But before I do, I want to come back here and remind you that what this looks like. This looks like this, NB project, source, and a couple of files here. So let me do this now, versioning, initialize Git repository. And it's going to ask where you want to initialize the repository, and it's going to default it to the folder where this is. Click on OK, come back here and look at it now, and now you'll see that there's a .git folder. And that folder contains a bunch of other folders, and essentially what this has in it is the description of the project and its history of modifications, including who changed it, what changes were made, why they were made. And you can go down here and look, but don't mess with this, because if you mess with this, you're likely to mess up the Git repository database, and that's likely to cause you to lose your history of modifications here. You won't lose your files, but you can easily lose everything else. So this folder contains information about the project, maybe about the current state of the project, about what files are in the project and where they are, how you intend to have it built, and so forth, what kind of a project it is. And so don't mess with it either. You can go down here and look, but you don't need to mess with that. This is the folder where you're going to have code. And so, if we were to come in here and we would say, I want to create a new Java class, let's say a new Java class, we'll just call it new class. Then I've got this, and we'll do this quite a bit because that's what this course is about. And what we're going to do now is come over here and look at this, and you'll notice we've got new class right there. And so what's happening is that the versioning system is keeping track of changes that are made to this collection. You'll notice these are in green. Notice that they have been added, and that means they've been added to the repository. And when we add things to the repository, that means that they're in there. And depending on how it gets added, you may not have to do this part, but we're going to do it anyway. It doesn't hurt to do it. What I want to do is to establish something like this. If you look at this, what we've got in the old way, I mean the way that you've been taught up to this point in Programming 1 has been to simply have local storage. And I don't think that that you probably have been exposed to versioning. And if you have, bear with me, and I'll just go through it anyway. We converted from local storage to a local repository by doing that versioning selection of GitHub repository. And what that does is allow us then to do this operation called commit, that takes things that are here and have them committed to the actual repository. They're actually kind of in the repository, but to commit them means that now I really mean for it to be there so that I can make this part of my workflow. So what we're going to do is come over here and right click on this, come down here, and now where it says, where it used to say versioning, it says Git. And we can come up here and we can click on commit. And notice here that it's got a bunch of files here. And these are all of those files that go with the project. There's the build XML, the manifest, and these things that we didn't create. These gen files we didn't create, project properties we didn't create, but there's Java sample and new class. And it wants us to commit those. And so what we're going to do is say why we're committing them, and we're going to say, I'll just really say why it is. I'm doing this as an example of how a local repository works. And I'm going to click on commit. Notice all of these have been checked, and that means that we want to commit all of those to the repository. Click on that and give it a second, and now you'll notice that those are not green anymore but rather black. And that means that they've been committed, everything is fine. You'll notice this little green green triangle there. That means that there is a main class in there, and that's this guy right here, that main object that we want to call. But pretty much we've got the ability now to create this repository. And if I were to come here and say, put my name in here and save that, and then notice that's going to turn that to blue, meaning that it's been modified. That's what blue means. Sometimes it takes a second or two to get all of the Git stuff done. If I then go back and commit this, I can run and do a commit and tell it example of a change to a file, and click on commit. That's the one I want to commit. Then I can come up here and I can look at this file and click on history. And notice that that's when I created it. That's the local version of the file. This is when I created it. These are the two changes. This is after the first commit, and then there's after the change in the commit to the file. So if I want to look at this guy, you'll notice that it shows that they're the same. Well, that's because that's the file that's locally on the machine, the current file. But if I wanted to compare the current file to what happened before I did that commit, I can do this, and you'll see that it says author Dave here and author Dave Redder there. And we can continue down this list to find out where we may have made a change that caused us problems or whatever. Notice also that it says who was the user that did the commit. So there's blame to be had if you do a commit and you do it improperly, or even if you do it maliciously, there will be blame to be had on those kinds of things. So with all of that in mind, this allows us to create and manage this local repository that is defined in this .git of this Java sample. All right, so what I want to do now is to talk about the next step. If you look at this, I'll move this up a little bit, and we look at this. Now we have another situation happening. Yeah, we wanted it to commit it. We've got that record that shows us the history on this thing about how the file has changed from one step to the next. But we would also like to put this whole thing, all of this, on GitHub. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a place to put it. And the place I'm going to put it is a new repository. You may have already created this repository, and I want you to have a repository called programming-2. Some of you have, some of you haven't yet. But I need you to do this. I'm going to create another one. I don't need you to do this part, but it's only because you cloned from my Programming-2 folder repository and put it in your Programming-2 repository. I want you to think about the let me go back here. I want you to think about this as being my Programming-2 repository, and this new one that I'm creating as being your Programming-2 repository. And I'm going to call it Programming-2 copy. Okay, so I'm not going to put a README in it. I'm not going to put a gitignore in it. I'm not going to put a license in it. And this will save you a little bit of headache, but you could put them in here. But actually, they were already in the repository that you cloned, and we're going to end up putting all of that stuff in this folder. So I'm going to click on Create Repository. And it gives you this to tell you how you can go about then setting up the repository. I'm going to click on this Copy to Clipboard. This is simply the URL to the repository. I'm going to come back over here to NetBeans. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, I want to I'm done with this one, by the way. I'm going to close these files. I'm looking now back at this one, which is the one I did in the previous video, as you can see by the name. And what I want to do is notice that there are some modifications here. So I'm going to first do a commit. But in order to do a commit, I'm going to be committing it to my local repository. And this is going to be, I picked the wrong one. Let me close that one. And this is the one I want. I want to go to commit this. And this will be to my local repository. And I'm going to click on commit. Notice that hello world went away because I did actually delete it. But I'm not worried about that. And then what I want to do is, you'll notice that these files have some errors in them, but I'm really not too concerned about that right now. What I want to do is I want to get remote and push. And when I do this push, here's the situation. This might be a little bit confusing for you, but keep in mind that this one would be your Programming-2 copy. It probably is going to have here this one, the DREADER Programming-2, not with the copy on it. It's probably going to have that up here because that's where you got it, and that's not where you want to put it. You need to click on this. You need to get rid of whatever it says in here and replace it with your version of this repository. Where is it now? This stuff that you got by doing the copy on your account with your Programming-2 folder. Okay, so here we've got this. Then you're going to have to give it your credentials, your username and login for your account. And it'll try to go there and do this. And this is what should happen for you. And part of the reason that it's going to happen this way is because we've changed it now to be your repository here, and because we didn't create the local or the three files, the README, the .gitignore, and the licensing files, because they're already going to be in here. So I'm going to click on Next, and it's going to say no branch selected, but notice there that A stands for the master will be added. Master is the name of the current thing that we're working on. So bear with me, we may get back to dealing with masters, but we may not even deal with this at all. You need to make sure that's checked in any case. You click on Next, and then it says Master Origin. It says you is the original, the master on the origin will be updated. Click on Finish, and you'll notice down here that it's pushing some stuff to that repository. Now if we go back to this repository and reload that, looky there. There's main menu. There's the NB project. There's the assignments folder. And there are all of those folders, or all of those files that contain code. So for example, if you want to look at the main menu, you can do that. There's the code for it. Notice it says Dave Redder there. So now we've got the ability to put things out on GitHub. And you may learn this term, certainly you'll learn later, how to share this stuff and how to do some really amazing, wonderful little tricks to allow you to modify it without permanently modifying it until you say that's what you want to do. So with that all in mind, that's what I need you to be able to do, and get your GitHub repository programming-2 folder uploaded with all of the information, all of the things in your application on NetBeans. I hope that works. It's at 16 minutes for this video. So I hope that works for you. Please don't hesitate to contact me. It would be of most use for you to contact me through the forum in the course, and you can do that by coming here in the course, click on News Forum, and add a new topic, and I'll get that. Everybody else will be able to read it, and then I'll be able to answer to everybody for anyone's question. Yep, it will say who asked the question first, but don't hesitate to do that. If you've got a question, it's a great chance that so do other people in the course. So with that all finished, we'll finish this video, and I hope you're doing well. Please try to keep up with your assignments. Do not hesitate to contact me in any way you've got, email, but preferably through this forum so others can see it. But if you got something of a personal nature or whatever, contact me through email. Okay, that's all. Bye.